Okay, I am here with a marine mechanic, Mr. Miles Lambrecht. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. He wanted to come on to talk a little bit about the repair issues that they face in the military, and also to help inform the people like me who understand there's the consumer electronics, but are very ignorant when it comes to the military. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Not a problem, Louis. My pleasure.
So first, could you just introduce the audience to yourself? What did you do in the Marines, and how long were you there for?
So I was in the Marine Corps for about 16 and a half years. I was a tank mechanic. The Marine Corps ended up getting rid of tanks. So instead of staying in and learning a new job, I decided to just take early retirement. And now I'm here.
One of the examples that you brought up when it comes to repair was for the Abrams. It was an M88A2, and it was a voltage regulator. So just assume that I know nothing about this. I'm just a washed-up MacBook repairman. What is this voltage regulator for?
So essentially, it's on the engine's generator for the voltage for to charge the batteries. It regulates the voltage so it doesn't go too high or too low. It's just like on a car. It just regulates the voltage to the batteries.
What does this part cost from the OEM?
About in 2018, it cost roughly, I think, about $1,200.
$1,200. Now, how long is the back order if you want to get a replacement from the OEM for this part?
So I've run into back orders as high as 8 months. Sometimes they're on shelf. It really comes down to contracting because it's such a low use item. It ends up like once the contract orders say 100, and then it gets 100, and then that contract's not revisited 5 or 6 years. So then when everything's been used up, the new contract has to be written up and all that bureaucratic stuff. So it can take a while. So I've seen it 6 to 8 months. I've seen it as a couple of weeks, but it's when it's backward that becomes a problem.
How much did it cost for you to fix this in-house? And what was the time frame that it took?
So I believe the time frame was, between 4 to 5 months, and that was mapping the entire circuit board inside the regulator. It was like 90s tech, so it was relatively simplistic. But even with all the mapping, it took that long. And then parts, I think, were around $20. Without thinking labor, it was only like $20 to fix.
Now, let's say you had access to a schematic, like those 70-page documents that we get from the kind, benevolent people that sneak them out of Apple's headquarters and release them on sites like VenaFix for all of us. If you had access to a schematic, how much faster would that process have been instead of it taking 4 months for you to map out everything from scratch?
If we were to get the parts in and not have any issues with that, probably within like 2 weeks. Because, I think it was like a transistor and like a couple of normal resistors all that was bad. So it's really simple to fix.
For other large components and things that you've talked about when you messaged me, what does it usually cost to replace those boards versus repairing them the way that you were? And let's assume cost, if you could give me an idea of when you have to map everything out yourself, when you get a schematic from the manufacturer versus you can't fix it at all, you have to have them do it. Like, what's the difference in cost and time frame there on other items?
So a majority of those larger circuit boards was that we had to send them to the manufacturer. When contracting, when buying vehicles or systems like that, the government goes in with a budget. Say they buy the vehicle for X number of dollars. A part of that price is like, do you want schematics? Do you want all of the schematics, or do you just want some of them? So it really comes down to, they don't want to spend the money now, and then we end up paying for it later.
Okay, so in some of these cases, the manufacturers are actually giving you an option here. If you want the schematic of the board, you pay extra to be able to fix it, but the Marines are not taking it. Is that the case?
I wouldn't say Marines at point. I would say the government in general, because there is a hierarchy that oversees all the branches. I can't speak for every single instance on every system, but I know it's happened a couple times, or it's happened once or twice within the tank community, that when we got an upgrade for a system, like the schematics weren't provided to us. And as far as I know from other times, we just didn't buy it. I know in other vehicles, they just chose not to buy the schematics. And that was that.
What we do at my business, there are times where we have to do this cost-benefit analysis when we're fixing something. Like, is it worth it for me to spend 40 hours figuring out this board problem, only to figure out that I can't get the part I need, or I can, but even after I switch it out, it's not going to work because of a lock that I don't even know exists. So do you ever deal with that where, because for me, if I don't know where a lock is, or I don't know if I can get a chip ahead of time, it kind of destroys the motivation and the excitement that is necessary for us to spend 80 hours just banging our head against the wall figuring out how something works. There's this natural curiosity that we have to figure out a problem, and sometimes that spirit gets beaten away knowing that that's there. Is that ever a factor with you when you're trying to troubleshoot something or work on it? You spend all this time reverse engineering it and mapping it and figuring it out, but the likelihood of there being a lock there or not being able to get the part is so high that you don't even bother?
For me personally, no. And I try to teach my Marines that, because if we had to order and had to wait or like it wouldn't have panned out anyways, and we know that, any knowledge or experience we got from trying it was worth it. We would basically be sitting there waiting for the part anyways. So why not spend the time trying to make it work in the meantime? That was my thought process.
But with the senators introducing these bills, some of them seem to really care about the issue and understand it. Others don't understand it, and some understand it but actively don't want to move things forward for reasons that I'll let my audience guess. Regardless of that, most of the people that are pushing this bill in Congress are not people that sat there with the soldering iron before, nor are they people that have firsthand experience with this in the military. So if you were dealing with a senator or speaking to them about this issue, what are the points that are being missed when this is being discussed as an issue in these Senate hearings or in the news that you feel this needs to be considered as somebody who is a Marine technician?
So I think one of the biggest points is that a lot of leaders or officers don't fully understand maintenance as a whole. Like, unless you're in a unit that is maintenance oriented, like a vehicle oriented battalion or something like that, they don't really grasp it. They view these equipment and their sub-assemblies as just like, oh yeah, this, that. And then they don't realize like, oh, it takes that much effort to fix it, or oh, it costs that much to do it. It's like it's an afterthought. It's not all leaders that do this, but it's a problem throughout, in my opinion, the military, that a lot of leaders don't fully grasp maintenance. When I left, it was getting better a little bit, but then you'll still run into those leaders who think they know more. It also comes down to ease, like how easy it is. Like, do we want to waste your time? But I don't look at it as wasting our time if we're going to be sitting around doing nothing anyways.
So when you say that they don't grasp what maintenance means, what is it that they're missing, and how is that negatively affecting everybody else?
So in my community of tanks, it was understood that for every operation of a tank, it required 5 hours of maintenance, whether it be just tightening down stuff, changing fluids, checking fluids, all that. So I was in a unit that they treated a similar vehicle to a tank as if it was just a shovel. Like, oh, you just go dig a hole and then you just go throw it back in the shed. And then they broke down all the time. It cost a lot more to fix it, a lot more to maintain it, because we ended up getting them to understand somewhat of it. But then after that, they just basically treat it as a tool instead of the machine that needs care and maintenance.
When you say they didn't understand maintenance, do you mean that they treated this like, we are going to fix this when it breaks, versus this is something that I need to provide regular upkeep to on a regular basis to ensure that there's not a problem later?
Without saying that, yes. They it's like, oh, we got to fix it now. We ended up spending more money on corrective maintenance than preventative, when it would have saved us so much money.
What are the underlying causes, in your opinion, that result in this type of misunderstanding when it comes to maintenance, that we're going to fix the problem when it becomes a problem versus let's try and not have it be a problem to begin with? Is it a human nature thing? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a procedural thing where you're not even allowed to do that because there's something that discourages you from doing that type of routine maintenance?
You know, in our technical manuals, it's laid out all the preventative stuff that you're supposed to do over and over. I think it becomes part of the human nature to just like, it's good now. Like it was fine, so we'll just go. But then it turns into, you do that enough times, it becomes a problem. My best analogy for some of the stuff, if something takes 10 volts to hold on, you lose one, oh, 9 will work. And then the next guy's like, oh, I lost another one, oh, 8 will work. Okay. Until you get down to like just 2 holding onto it.
Yeah, one of my best ex-technicians that I ever had, he stayed in New York because he wasn't able to move with my company. He has family in New York and Jersey. He's a technician in the Marines, and he worked on electronics there. He's been a Marine for over 20 years, and his attitude was the exact opposite of that. It was if there's that teeny tiny little rubber piece that goes over the MacBook Air fan, there are places that are like, who needs that? Why is that in there? He would be placing it back on and putting the little pieces of adhesive on there. His idea, if it went together like that, it has to go back together like that. And he was so meticulous with all of this. And a big part of that is he learned that from the Marine Corps. And it seems like something that was culturally ingrained, or that got ingrained into you when you worked there. So Is this like a case of a few bad apples, or is this like a systemic or cultural thing? Because it's very much the opposite from, again, I only have a sample size of one, but it's very different from what I heard from my own employee.
So he is correct. There is a lot of instances where you would be held to that standard. Hey, this is how it came in. It's going to leave in better shape than it came in. There's also the fact that people get lazy. They just get lazy. They don't go out and check the Marines doing it. And some of the Marines, they don't speak up, they don't say nothing, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, it's good enough. But there are instances where, like, I think it's more of like more people put it back together, rather the right way rather than the wrong way. But when you have the bad apples doing it too much, or it's not caught, it starts to build up.
So when you talk about that, let's say that has 10 bolts, what's one bolt missing kind of thing going to be bad? Is it an issue of it's going to take me 30 minutes to find where that bolt dropped, and in that 30 minutes I'm supposed to be doing something else and I'm going to get chewed out? Is it, or I just want to go back to playing video games? Is it if I can't find it and I report that it's a problem, now I get in trouble for it and I don't want to get in trouble for it? Or is it just plain old human laziness?
I would say it's all of that. There's laziness because I've in that circumstance where a piece of gear was held up by 4 bolts, I go in there and I see 3, but then I look down on the floor, like underneath something, and there's the bolt. I just have to take a little effort to fish my arm around all the wire harnesses there, and I can get it. But someone before me is just like, 3's fine. But then there are instances where somebody like breaks a bolt. They don't want to get yelled at, even though it's not personal, but it is also a fear of getting in trouble.
If Congress were to actually pass a right to repair bill for military equipment, what should they be focusing on primarily that are the major drivers of issues with repair when it comes to the military? Not just in how long it takes, but also how much it costs. Like, what are the things that should be focused on that may not be in the spotlight right now?
So one instance that I can speak on. So when we order parts, there's priorities. Higher the priority, the faster we get the item. But with faster shipping comes cost. I once ordered an item. It was a big ticket item while I was overseas. The item was $160 or $160,000, and the shipping there was $260,000. And I never saw these numbers while I was here in the U.S. None of us see those numbers.
Is that the tank or the part for the tank? 260.
A part for the tank.
And that was the shipping, or that was the shipping plus the part?
No, the shipping alone was $260,000.
What? So how is this being delivered by like a F-35?
Maybe it was on an aircraft, a large aircraft. I know that, like a C-17 or something. It was on a pallet. It's heavy, but I mean, I could see the part being that expensive. It was a lifting hook for 70 tons, but then the shipping cost. I'm like, oh my god, like.
You said 70 tons. Okay, and now it's starting to make a little bit more sense.
I'm sure the fiscal people who track the money everywhere can see it. But us as Marines who are just doing the maintenance, ordering parts and whatnot, we never see the cost of the shipping. And when we're ordering parts also is like, say we order it and then I've seen where it comes overnight from across the country, UPS, and then it'll come onto base and go to where it gets distributed to the correct unit. But then at that unit, it sits for 2 weeks. And it's like, okay, why did I pay all this money? I know that we paid all this money for shipping, and then I still get it in the same amount of time. So that's a minor flaw. But I think with these circuit boards and other items that have to get sent back to the manufacturer, it's that cost of shipping that is probably a big ticket item. You can save a circuit board that's worth $6,000 instead of having to ship it back. Even for the manufacturer, say it's broken, we can't fix it, so it's just garbage anyways. Give us the try to do it, and then if it doesn't work, then we order one anyways. But it could save that shipping cost. And
you said you're also not able to actually see the shipping cost, which is an interesting one. So part of it is if my employee's ordering a part and somebody's expecting something back by next Monday and today's Thursday, if next day's shipping is like $80,000 and shipping that arrives on Saturday is $20, I would like for them to be able to see the difference in the price. So you're saying you can't see the difference in the prices when you're choosing shipping?
No. So the system that we use only shows the price of the part, and then when we input the priority of it, and that goes to the supply side of the Marine Corps, like the supply side of the unit, and then they input it into the system, and then they either approve it or they deny it. If they approve it, then it gets pushed up higher in the chain of paying for stuff. But us as a unit, I've never seen the cost. And the only reason I knew how much that a very expensive item was shipped is because the bill of lading was right there on the pallet.
So I'm imagining that you and your team would make different choices with regards to which shipping option you chose, even if it didn't affect you personally. If you could see the U.S. taxpayer is paying $200,000 to get it by Monday, and maybe $4,000 to get it by Tuesday. Am I correct there?
I wouldn't. The commander was like, no, we need this now. I would be willing to go argue with him. Like, look, it does us no good. It's not like the item needs to be used now. We're not doing anything now. Like, one day is not going to make a difference because that money could be allocated elsewhere. It can provide more maintenance and more repairs in the future, and it saves money. Us in the military, I know we get paid by taxpayers' dollars, but we're still paying taxes ourselves.
Now, is this a case of this being this way because of procedure and genuine reason, or is this just you're all using systems that are on Cobalt and have never been updated since the 70s? So you don't have access to that information, not because they think you shouldn't, but because it's literally just there's no way for you to have it unless they redo everything.
But it's just the way the system was designed. I don't think anybody figured that the guy turning the wrench or changing the electronics needed to know this information. Only the bigwigs that manage all the money at the end of the day.
Because if they're far away from the decision-making process, it may not really make sense to them. They may think you put it in with that priority because you needed it at that point, but you would make a different decision on priority if you could see the pricing structure of it. Like, there's a lot of things that I would like. I mean, I would like to be able to have somebody show up on the other side of the room to shake a set of greenies so BlackBerry stops trying to knock my camera over. If it was $5, if it was $50,000, I may change my mind. These are the decisions that I think you should be able to make. And what I'm learning from all these conversations that I'm having is that there's so much that goes into this outside of the two-dimensional little box of you don't have access to a part or a tool, or you don't have access to a schematic. That's clearly a part of it, as you were explaining with the voltage regulator to that Abrams, and that is important. But there's all these little teeny tiny elements that I would not really understand unless I was there turning a wrench with you, that I'm learning by having all these conversations. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about all of this. Thank you so much.
Not a problem, Louis. My pleasure as always.
Yeah, so if a senator were actually listening to this that's actually writing a piece of legislation, if you had a TLDR for them, what would you want them to hear?
I would say try to make everything transparent on costs and with shipping, because if we can get the item to fix it instead of shipping it back, and if we pay more upfront to get the information we need to repair it on site, it would make readiness, in my opinion, go not through the roof, but improve greatly, because we could all do it and we all will get the experience of doing it over and over again. That it would save time, save money, and bring readiness up across the board.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I realize that you're busy and you're flying, and you took time out of your day in the middle of a vacation to talk to me about military right to repair before senators decided to talk about putting a bill together. So just thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
No problem. Thank you very much. You as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And you can't see this because it's not a video. I don't know if you could see the video part, but BlackBerry is staring at you, and she's actually been my cat has been like trying to knock the camera over or mess with me the entire video. But hey,
cats being cats.
Yes. All right. Have a great rest of your day, my friend, and thank you for your service.
All right. Thank you. You have a good day too.